I'd say this one is kind of dealing with a couple themes of display and taxonomy, kind of personal collections. I've always loved objects. I always really like the patina and the signs of wear and use. And especially today in the contemporary art world, I think it's kind of nice using some things that show a sense of history or kind of some stuff that talks a little bit more about process. I do a lot of junk collecting at first, or do a lot of kind of going out and hunting for a lot of the stuff that I get. Some of the materials that I'm using I've used in other installations. I kind of like building on top of the histories of other things that I've used before. These lamps I've been carrying around for a while. I found this in my back alley. This thing I just found at a recent Savers here in Minneapolis. And this one of my friends, Audrey, got for $1. Hoped the record player worked and it didn't. So a lot of the stuff that I build my stuff out of kind of depends on what I've been looking for recently, or kind of what circumstances or places I've been, and these are kind of come as different kind of souvenirs of it. I always played a lot with constructs. I was always building an awful lot with constructs. That was some of the thing. Actually, where I'm sitting behind me is going to be some constructs that will kind of work its way into this area and kind of start populating the piece as well. I really liked the building. It was busy work, and it was that whole idea of process and art, but at the same time, I mean, it was play, and it was fun, and it wasn't work. And I like where those two kind of things intersect. Like the idea of bringing games into it, the idea of kind of fun as play, as serious artwork. I think is as viable as any kind of other thing that's happening in the art world. So maybe in response to some conversations I had in the past, I tried to bring out some more whimsy in it to as kind of a hook or a way for people to approach it to get invested in the work as any other kind of thing. So this particular one is called Up, Up, Down, Down, Left, Right, BA, BA, Select, Start, which is an old Nintendo code for Contra. And you put it in, you got like 100 lives or something. It was the only way you could beat Contra. That game was impossible without it. But people still know it, and people will still think about that, and it brings them to sitting in their basement, you know, playing those games with their friends, with their thing of Jolt and, you know, the popcorn. And like that idea of play, or the way that, or that idea of repetition and that code too, I think is some of the things that are going to start coming out in this, as far as the idea of what you think about while you do an action a whole lot of different times. So this particular theme is a continuation of some of the themes that I've been working with for a while, is how people form connections to certain things, whether it's, you know, one man's junk is another man's treasure. There's an instance in my studio when I was down in grad school where I got two of the exact same objects mixed up. And one of them was one that I had personal attachment to, maybe it was around in my childhood, and I found another object like it out in a Goodwill. And I put them on the shelf, and I went to grab it, and I looked, and there were two, and then it was like a double take, like, which one do I have that kind of attachment to? And then I started thinking, whoa, the whole purpose for keeping this thing around, maybe I can't differentiate between the two anymore. And then I got to thinking about, on a wider kind of more cultural level, why people form certain attachments to things. People collect different snow globes. Some people collect cross-stitched Santas and thimbles with cutters and eye cups. And, old cars, however people form attachments to stuff. Some of the stuff and some of their histories and some of their rationales for loving those objects, because they kind of point out of that object to different memories that that object was witness to. So to see one of these things and to kind of see it, or to use it for myself and for the viewer as a catalyst to embark on all those other kind of, I guess, contextual journeys where you look through that object to the kind of place that surrounds it. So why we all collect certain stuff and why we keep certain stuff around, I like kind of piling them around and juxtaposing them together in a way that sometimes the form or the size of it just fits into something that I started maybe just sketching out before I know it. I kind of have the basic architecture or structure of the system that I want to display all these things on. The drawing that I've started doing behind these images where they come against the wall is, I guess, kind of builds into the idea of history of it, and how this thing, the idea of the installation is that mainly it's kind of a temporary thing because it addresses a larger space and kind of takes up more stuff rather than hanging a painting or a drawing on the wall. So the temporary nature of this, I think, and how we remember it, that our memory is kind of an abstraction, or it's fallible. It's not perfect, and so how we decide to remember this when it's gone is kind of operating right here, I think, and that you have the actual physical object in front of you, and then you have this kind of 2D representation of it happening behind it. So it's here, but it's also going to be a memory soon, or it's going to be represented in a different way, like through memory. This is the first time that that I played around with sculpture and with drawing kind of in tandem with each other. The last time that I did it, I had the sculpture on one side and the drawing kind of as discrete pieces, and I wanted the viewer to operate in that position between two, or the drawing and the installation. But this time I like the two kind of playing off each other, so I think I'm already starting to think about how I want to play around with stuff next time and how I want to get drawing, maybe have a little bit more of a heavier role in it versus the sculptural objects. But at the same time, I think people respond a whole lot more to the sculptural objects.
Or the staples or something.
Could you do a rounded thing? Could you round the corners? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was one of those duh moments where a couple years ago I started looking at all my different practices, and I had this practice and this practice and this practice and practice, and I for some reason kept them all separate. But this is kind of the culmination of a couple years where I started bringing all of those practices closer together. So it was drawing, and it was collage, and it was architectural drawing, then it was sketchbook drawing, then it was assemblage and mixed media stuff, and all of those were emanating from the same point, which was me. And I just had to figure out how I could bring all those together. And so every time that I make something like this, it's a dialogue with all these different processes, with all the different products and kind of cultural ephemera that I pull from the world at large and kind of put together. So every time I do that, it's kind of which kind of practice that I use can I utilize the best, I guess. But hopefully, best case scenario, I'm working towards getting all those things working into one thing. I literally finished it 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes into the show. The nice thing is about the kind of work, a lot of the work that's done here, like the real kind of particular, meticulous work is when it's done. So it could be done 25 minutes ago or 10 hours ago, and it's kind of interesting for the viewer to kind of navigate that. But I finished it and I'm happy with it about 10 minutes ago.